Hi, and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Let's just take a moment's silence for all the haters. That's enough. Be sure to check out the blooper reel at the end of the video, which is then followed by the end screen where you will find more videos listed. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. Dying to Live, Part 6, the finale. This awesome series is written by the Reddit author, getyaisha. I know it's been a while, but it wasn't my fault this time, I swear. A quick recap. I killed the Russo brothers and Teddy got shot. He didn't die. Oh yeah, some chick took all my money. I'm a fugitive and I was about to go on a killing spree with some nut job named Phil. If you're new here, I'm Martin and I'm Immortal. I suppose it's been a few months for you guys, but for me it's been an hour at best. I guess I should explain. Phil had just finished patching Teddy up and was in the process of asking me 1,000,001 questions when he decided to test my immortality. Yeah, you heard that right. This idiot pulled his gun and shot me in the face to see if I was telling the truth. That little incident sparked off a chain of events no one saw coming. When the dust settled from that issue, he agreed to help kill Gilroy and wipe out his cult. It should have been cut and dry from there, but as usual, things never go as planned. Once we finished brainstorming, I tried to get some rest. Tossing and turning, I fought my way into a comfortable position and managed to drift off. Only I wasn't asleep. The moment I drifted, I found myself floating in the void, but I wasn't alone. Just out of reach, a shimmering white orb shifted into a humanoid shape. Its body morphed, changing sizes, warping between male and female before finally settling as Marissa. Looking me over, she sighed. Then she shook her head and the void melted away. We were suddenly standing under the overpass where I'd met her for the first time. Caught off guard by the shift, I got lost in the moment and took a second looking around. The smell of the rain and the sound of the thunder sent a chill through me as a car passed by. "Hey, do you live around here?" The voice snapped me out of it and I spun around to see her smirking at me. "You know, I was content sharing your body." Before I could react, she rushed forward, placing her palm on my chest and shoved me backwards. I tumbled, landing in a sitting position, and suddenly felt something heavy in my hand. In that instant, the world around me burst like a bubble, revealing my shitty little apartment. I was sitting on the edge of my blow-up mattress, clutching the pistol I'd used to kill myself. Marissa's voice exploded in my brain as I involuntarily brought the pistol to my temple. "But no, you had to fuck it all up." The feeling of the pistol jumping in my hand only lasted a second. There was a flash of white light and we were back in the void. I wanted to yell, but no words would come out. She just smiled and looked around for a moment before waving a hand to get my attention. "Are you done? Good. Now listen, you are not immortal. I'm the only thing keeping you from being a rotten pile of meat. I've never been this close to ending the followers. That's the only reason I'm still here. In case you haven't caught on yet, you are dead, but I can fix that. When Gilroy and his people are gone, I'll give you your life back with enough energy to last 2 lifetimes, if you don't do anything stupid." She stepped closer to me, then morphed into the form of a woman I slightly recognized. She whispered in my ear, "Kill them all," then vanished. I woke, drenched in sweat, disorientated and slightly confused. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. As the room around me came into focus, I realized I wasn't in Phil's bunker. It took me a moment to recognize my surroundings. No, no, no! This isn't happening! This cannot be happening! I was back in that house where the followers tortured me for days before I was able to escape. I stood there as every agonizing second replayed in my mind. I could literally feel every stab, every broken bone, and every last bullet in nerve-rattling detail. For a second, I could have sworn I heard the engine of a chainsaw revving just before the door swung open. I wasn't ready for what came next. A heavy black fog rolled in, filling the room and blotting out the light. Black-eyed, bloody corpses materialized around me, clawing at my skin, snarling and groaning as they pulled me into the darkness. I saw Oliver, the Russos, that kid Teddy shot, and everyone I've killed since all this started. In the midst of fighting to free myself, Marissa's voice cut through the chaos. "All life is energy, but all energy is not the same. You were chosen because of your frequency." Her words reverberated through the air, repeating and fading as my body was torn apart, then reassembled into unrecognizable forms. The pain was unimaginable, but somehow I found the will to scream. My voice rumbled through the air and shattered the world around me. It was like watching water circle the drain. I suddenly found myself back in my normal state, staring at Earth from high above the surface. I could see orbs of light whizzing around, moving as though they were going through their regular routine. It was mesmerizing and confusing at the same time. I watched in awe till I felt a hand on my shoulder. Slowly turning to see who was touching me, I came face to face with that same glowing humanoid form. "How is this possible?" it asked. Its voice filled my mind with images of foreign landscapes and alternate dimensions. I saw hundreds of versions of myself standing in a single file line along a corridor of plain white doors. Every time I tried to move, one of them would turn and walk through one of the doorways, causing the line to shift and shorten. The voice spoke again. "You shouldn't be here." As those words bounced around in my head, I felt like I was being pulled down towards the earth beneath me. I fell faster and faster till all I could see was a multicolored blur of blue, green, brown and white. It's true what they say. It's not the fall that kills you, it's the sudden stop at the end. When I slammed into the ground, I heard and felt every bone in my body shatter. After that, there was nothing. No sound, no light, just an unending emptiness. It wasn't like the void. It felt wrong. Whatever this place was, none of my senses applied. I hung there waiting, wishing for any sign of life, till a high-pitched metallic whine shrieked its way into my brain. A warm sensation surrounded me as the sound of a heartbeat broke through the silence. Ahead of me, I could see a sliver of light and hear screaming. Voices echoed, whispering things like, "It's almost time," and "Breathe." The warm sensation slowly became an immense pressure, squeezing what little breath I had out of me as the darkness became a blinding light. Every moment of my life flashed through my mind, concluding with me lying down in Phil's bunker. The moment I closed my eyes, I instantly sat up, gasping for air. After a few seconds, Phil rushed in, turning on the lights. "Holy fuck! Where'd you come from? And how the hell did you get back in here?" I had no idea what he was talking about. In my mind, I'd just woken up. He gave me a strange look and stepped back while grabbing the pistol in his waistband. "No offense, Marty, but you've been missing for 4 months. I need you to do more than just sit there with that stupid look on your face. Where'd you go, and how the fuck did you get back in?" I didn't bother trying to not sound crazy. I told him what happened, and he laughed. "Well, I'll be damned. So let me get this right. You were taken to the other side by the thing in your body, but it was a mistake. I don't get it. What's that supposed to mean exactly?" I didn't have an explanation. Nothing that made sense anyway. After a few more questions, he called Teddy, who drove over as soon as he heard I was back. As usual, he walked in with a 6-pack and his signature dopey grin. "Well, if it ain't Harry freaking Houdini. I was wondering when you'd turn up. We'd been keeping tabs on Gilroy since you went MIA on us. He's been doing everything in his power to find you. That's the bad news. The good news is there's a huge ribbon cutting ceremony going on tomorrow for the public opening of the neighbourhood you told me about. Gilroy will be there. I figure that's the best time to get this show on the road, if you're still going after him." A part of me wanted to walk away. If they hadn't found me in 4 months, I felt sure I could dodge them for a while longer. Then I thought about what Marissa said, and for the first time in a long while, I actually wanted to live. Before I'd vanished, the plan was to burn that neighbourhood to the ground. But now that it was officially open, there would be too many innocent people in the way. At least, that's the way I was thinking. Phil and Teddy, on the other hand, had been setting up incendiary devices and had most of the neighbourhood ready to go. Laying down the map, they pointed out where the ceremony was being held and exactly how much of the area was wired to blow. Cracking open a beer, Teddy belched and pointed to a hill overlooking the park. "I'll be right there with a nifty 50 caliber money shot for anyone between you and the old man. Phil's on crowd control. I'll let him explain because the shit sounds dumb to me and I don't think it'll work." Phil glared at him for a moment, then opened a beer of his own. "First off, Theodore, I guarantee all my products work. I take pride in what I do. You just make sure you're sober enough to do your part. Now, I've been working on this project for a pal of mine. He needed a way to incapacitate an entire crowd in seconds. He stopped talking and walked over to a large cabinet, opened it, then retrieved what looked like a large ball bearing. I originally designed these to fly, but I had a little trouble with the mechanics. One of these puppies will render 200 adults unconscious in under 2 seconds. The problem is Gilroy and his guards will be on stage. They'll be 3 or 4 feet above the impact zone. You and I will handle them while Ted keeps any reinforcements off our ass. He paused and puffed up, smirking like he was proud of the plan. I have to admit it was better than anything I would have thought up, but I had a few questions. That sounds great, but does that thing work? The second those words left my mouth, I knew I fucked up. He smirked, and pressed a button on the damn thing before rolling it towards us. The next thing I knew, I'm waking up on the floor. Phil's laughter was the first thing I heard as I sat up to see he'd been knocked out as well. Teddy was the last one to come to. He claimed to have spilled his beer when he fell, but I personally think he pissed himself. Whatever questions I had went out the window after that. I had a splitting headache, and all I wanted to do was get something to eat. We had to have gone over the plan 100 times before sunrise. While Gilroy was making his speech, I would make my way to the stage and wait for Phil to drop the crowd. Once they were on the ground, I'd spring into action and take the old man down. Since I'd had enough sleep for a lifetime, I left early and found a spot to wait for things to jump off. I watched them setting up from the rooftop of a nearby building, then snuck down a few hours later when the crowd gathered. It was still half an hour before the ceremony, so I kept a low profile, doing my best to stay away from all the security floating around the event. I managed to wind up in an ice cream shop with a good view of the stage. Judging by the crowd, you'd have thought the president had come to town. It wasn't long before it was showtime. Gilroy was on stage. I could already feel the electricity skipping across my skin and hear Marissa's voice in my head. Kill them. I scanned the crowd till I spotted Phil, wearing a bowling shirt and a fedora. He was sipping an iced coffee as he made his way to Ground Zero. A few seconds later, I got a text. It read, "Get on the table." This is where things went wrong. I hopped on the table, which caused a commotion, attracting unwanted attention from security. Luckily, Phil's gadget did what it was supposed to do. The crowd hit the concrete just as my body went numb and I lost control. I rushed out of the shop and ran headlong into security. The first guy was a big one. I disemboweled him before snapping his spine and moving on. Phil shot the second guy in the head before engaging with more guards. I could see him. Gilroy was being led away by his staff as Teddy picked them off one by one. Closing the distance between us didn't take much, but I didn't get close enough to make a difference. They shoved him into an SUV and sped away. I couldn't keep up. We'd lost. Now they knew I was here, and they'd be coming after all of us. Teddy picked Phil and I up a few blocks away. We managed to get out of there before more police arrived. By the time we made it back to the bunker, reports were coming in from all over. Gilroy's people identified me, and they had police sketches of Phil. Since Teddy was never technically on the scene, he was in the clear. I thought Phil would be pissed, but oddly enough, he didn't seem to care. Well, boys, looks like we're in it now. What's on the agenda? Lighting a joint, Teddy leaned back in his seat. I told you this was a dumb idea. We should have hit the old man where he lives. Now look, you two jackasses are on America's Most Wanted, and I'm out of beer. Looking at the two of us, Phil smirked. The neighbourhood's still wired. I say light it up and use the fires as a distraction while we take care of business. I didn't think anything could surprise me anymore, but Phil's response stumped me for a second. Who are you? Normal people don't torch neighbourhoods as a distraction, and why do you know how to do this shit? He just smiled and got up from his seat. Does it matter? Let's get this over with so I can go back to my life and you two can go back to whatever it is you were doing. After 2 days of planning, we loaded Teddy's van with artillery and hit the road. Since no one was looking for him, he was the designated driver. It took hours to get everything set up and get in position. Gilroy's estate sat in the rear of the neighbourhood. The fires would keep the police out and give us the time we needed. Phil was on the east wall, Teddy would be coming from the west, and I would be driving up to the front door. Gilroy and the followers would snatch me up the second they saw me. I'd be beaten and probably killed at least once before getting some face time with the man himself. No matter what happened, Teddy and Phil would wait exactly 45 minutes, then trigger the explosives and come in shooting. It sounded so simple, but once I was alone in the car, all I could think of was ways for this to go wrong. Worst case scenario, Teddy and Phil get killed, and I end up on the old man's menu. Best possible outcome, we pull this off and spend the rest of our lives running from the police. Either way, it didn't matter. One way or the other, this would be over. As I reached the start of the car, my body went numb and the world went black. I could hear the engine and feel the car moving, but I wasn't in control. The world didn't come back into focus until the car stopped. Men with guns barked orders and violently ripped me out of the vehicle. It was perfect. They beat the shit out of me and dragged me inside as the clock was ticking. They didn't ask questions. There was no big reveal or dramatic pause. I was taken to a butcher's room, stripped and strapped to a table. It wasn't long before Gilroy was staring down at me. The second we locked eyes, my body went numb and I almost smiled. I knew the straps wouldn't hold once the light took over, but I wasn't sure how much damage my body could take before it shut down. Gilroy didn't bother talking. Pulling a knife from his vest pocket, he smiled, then sliced a small section of flesh from my arm and put it in his mouth. His horrid smile turned to a scowl of disapproval before he spat the chunk of meat out. "What have you done?" he demanded, while feverishly trying to rid himself of the taste. Seeing his reaction made me smile, just as the explosions in the distance triggered alarms. I don't know if it had been 45 minutes, but I was ready to get this show on the road. A guard rushed into the room, informing Gilroy of the fires breaking out, just as I snapped the straps and sprung up from the table. Without hesitation, the old man shoved the guard towards me and ran out of the room. Regaining his balance, he prepared to attack, but it was too late. I dove at him, palming his skull and forcing him back against the wall with an impact so vicious it caused bits of debris to fall from the ceiling. If he was hurt, he didn't let it show. He retaliated with a combination of blows to my body, then followed up with a front kick that forced me back and gave him enough room to go for the gun on his hip. I was on him in an instant, grabbing his gun hand and snapping his wrist was just the beginning. He howled in pain as his bones splintered and tore through his skin. A quick yank down dislocated his arm at the shoulder as my free hand shot forward and ripped his throat out, spraying me with his blood. It only took a couple of seconds before I could already hear more guards coming. I rushed out into the hall and spotted Gilroy pointing towards my cell as he did his best to get away. The sound of gunfire from outside let me know Teddy and Phil were doing their part, but I had more pressing matters. 6 guards, and 30 seconds later, the hall was coated in blood. What happened next is kind of hard to explain. It's like my body went berserk. It was uncontrollable. I saw myself tearing through flesh and taking bullets from every direction, but I couldn't feel them. I tore through every living thing in my path till I found myself pounding on the massive steel door. Gilroy was inside. I could literally smell him and it was driving me crazy. A few more guards attempted to stop me. One of them came pretty close. If it weren't for Phil showing up at the last minute, he might have succeeded. Seeing me naked and covered in blood, he stopped. Taking a step back, he asked if I was alright. It took me a second to respond, but once I told him I was okay, he relaxed. Jesus, man, put some clothes on. Why are you naked? What the hell's wrong with you? Is this your thing? You get nude and go apeshit? No judgment, but damn, you might need to see somebody about that. He paused for a moment, looking around at all the bodies, then glanced back to the door and smiled. He's in there, isn't he? I've got just the thing for that. Slipping off his pack, he reached in and pulled out a small bundle of C4. It only took him a few seconds to get it set up, and then he turned to me, smirked and said, "Fire in the hole." We both ducked into an open room as he hit the button. Explosions made my ears ring, but it did the trick. Of course, Gilroy wasn't alone, but we made quick work of the guards. The old man wasn't defenceless, he had one last trick up his sleeve. I saw a glimmer of light come from his eyes just before he raced forwards, swatting Phil out of the way with ease. I didn't give him a chance to make another move. Launching at him, I landed a stiff shot to his jaw, forcing him back a step or two before he grabbed me and threw me through a freaking wall. Out of desperation, I hurled a chunk of concrete at him, buying me a second to get to my feet and rush him. We went blow for blow till I slipped up and gave him the upper hand by tripping over a corpse. The old bastard kicked me so hard I slid across the floor. I'm not ashamed to say I hit him with a low blow. Supernatural or not, a shot to the balls is always effective. He folded like a lawn chair and I proceeded to beat him to a pulp. But he wouldn't die. The guy was a pool of blood and bones, yet he was still laughing at me. That's when the voice in my head said two words that made me shiver. Consume him. The thought was repulsive, but I couldn't stop myself. I dropped to my knees and started stuffing fistfuls of flesh in my mouth. The coppery funk of blood mingled with the stench of his disemboweled intestines created a nauseating combination. Fighting the urge to vomit, I powered through it till there was nothing but bone. Then I blacked out. When I came to, I was wrapped in a tarp lying on the floor of Teddy's van. I could smell smoke and see the orange glow of flames engulfing the neighbourhood. I sat up and watched it burn as we hauled ass down a dirt road leading back to the highway. It wasn't long before they noticed I was awake. Teddy was the first to speak up. "Oh, look who decided nap time was over. Rise and shine. I heard you had a moment back there. Just remind me to stay off your shit list. I'm not trying to be a snack. I won't bore you with the trip, but by the time we made it to Phil's bunker, I was feeling great. I cleaned myself up and put on some clothes Phil gave me, then went to see what the others were doing. When I stepped into the garage where they were unloading, Phil tossed me a bag. That's your cut. While you were sleeping off your meal, we raided the place. Gilroy had a shitload of cash lying around. There's a little over $250,000 in that bag, along with your share of these weird ass gold coins he had. I figure that's enough to give you a fresh start wherever you wind up." Cracking the cap of a frosty tall boy, Teddy took a long drink, then dug in his pocket, pulled out a set of car keys and tossed them to me. "I might be an asshole, but I always pay my debts. I owed you a car, so while you were gone, I fixed up that streetcar we got from that chick that took your money. It's out front when you're ready. Grabbing a bit of my own, I counted the money and took a look at the dozen or so gold coins. I had no idea what they were, but there were Latin words etched into them, and they all had an owl's head engraved on both sides. It really didn't matter. I zipped up the bag, cracked open my beer, and chugged it, taking a second to enjoy the taste. When I was done, I grabbed the bag and headed for the car with the two of them following me out. Well guys, I can't repay you for this, but as promised, Teddy, I'll tell you what's on the other side. Brace yourself, this is going to sting a little. There's nothing on the other side. Well, that's not quite completely true. It depends on where you end up. Take my word for it, brother. You should enjoy whatever time you've got here, because it doesn't mean shit in the void. Phil, you are a strange person. But without you, I don't think we would have gotten this far. So for what it's worth, thanks. But seriously though, who are you? He smiled and shook his head. Who am I? Who are you? Who is anyone really? And in the end, does it really matter? I knew he wouldn't answer. I just shrugged it off and shook his hand and then glanced over at Teddy, who was lighting a joint. Well, old man, I guess this is it. If I ever see you again, I'll be sure to go the other way. He laughed and we shook on it. Then I got in the car, cranked the engine and drove away. I'd been on the road for about an hour when Marissa's voice flooded my mind. The followers still live. We have work to do. And I hope you all enjoy the following blooper reel. I suppose it's been a few months for you guys. But for me, it's been an hour at best. Its body morphed, changing sizes, warping between male and female before finally settling as Marissa. Marissa's voice exploded in my brain as I involuntarily brought the pistol to my temple. Marissa's voice exploded in my brain as I involuntarily brought the pistol to my temple. Her words reverberated through the air, repeating and fading as my body was torn apart, then reassembled. Her words reverberated through the air, repeating and fading as my body was torn apart, then reassembled into unrecognizable forms. It was like watching water circle the drain. I saw hundreds of versions of myself standing in a single file line along a corridor of plain white doors. Phil and Teddy, on the other hand, had been setting up incendiary devices and had most of the neighbourhood ready to go. Phil glared at him for a moment, then opened a beer of his own. I scanned the crowd till I spotted Phil wearing a bowling hat and a fedora. Wearing a bowling shirt and a fedora. Phil was on the east wall, Teddy would be coming from the west, and I was driving right up the front door. Phil was on the east wall, Teddy would be coming from the west, and I would be driving up to the front door. Out of desperation, I hurled a chunk of concrete at him. When I stepped into the garage where they were unloading, Phil tossed me a bag. "Hey family, please be so kind as to throw punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to chokehold that notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. And by subscribing you'll be the first to see all of our new spooky creepypasta stories. A very big thank you to getyaisha for allowing me to narrate this awesome series. Make sure to check out getyaisha's Reddit for more brilliant stories. Also, be sure to check out the getyaisha playlist here for more of their stories that I have already narrated. I would just like to say a very big thank you to all of the authors that I have worked with and all the ones that I will work with in the future. So thank you all, my brothers and sisters. And why not hashtag cryptidsroost in your comments. If you would like to support the channel, I have an account at buymeacoffee.com. You can send your coffee donations, big or small, to that site, link is below, or via paypal.me/cryptidsroost. Hashtag creators for peace. More information to follow. And don't forget to check out the end screen, see above. That will also list some more videos in my back catalogue. Take care everyone, and I hope you all have a wonderful and peaceful night. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.